Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Good to see everybody in this new world we're living in, right? I think that's what everyone's talking about before we even got started, right? Is this adjustment, and a lot of what we're feeling is normal because we have a lot of uncertainty. We don't know when things are going to end, what things are going to look like when they do settle down, and we're being stretched thin, right? So all of those stressors are contributing to an increase in anxiety. So just kind of taking it a step back, as we know about anxiety, it has the roots of anxiety can be helpful to us because anxiety is what usually gets us to move and get things done. It sparks that fight or flight symptoms in us that makes us feel like we're being threatened, something's going on. So when something like the coronavirus is going on, which is a real threat, it can definitely increase that feeling of anxiety and being overwhelmed. Now that we're home with our kids, probably even more than we were in the past, they're picking up a lot of things from us, whether they're saying it or not, right? So I think as a therapist, a lot of times I'd say it's easy kind of to see the relationship between the parent's anxiety and then the child's, behaviors. I'm sure teachers and things like that too will notice those things when you see the child is presented to us as having some sort of problem, and then you meet, the mom or the dad, and you realize, well, this is probably where it's coming from because you can tell the parent is also very anxious. So we want to make sure as parents that we're setting a good example. So things that we want to keep in mind is something as simple as the news that we're watching, right? I know myself, even the news is scary. It can really cause a lot of anxiety listening to all that. I mean, mix together the facts and mixing together like people's opinions and then your family members' comments about things. So it can cause a lot of stress. The kids are in the house, right? They hear all of these things, even if they're off playing in the other room, they hear good when they're not supposed to be listening, right? They don't listen when we're trying to tell them to do a chore, but they certainly hear when they shouldn't be listening. So they pick up a lot of what they're hearing on the news, and they're watching from us how we respond to it, how we react. Are we catastrophizing things? Are we talking out loud about our fears and where things are going to go? And if we are, that's can be healthy. We want to make sure that we're then explaining it in terms that they can understand. So kids are home with us. They're watching us. They're trying to adjust as well. Sometimes kids adjust in different ways. So they're not talking much. We might think that things are going okay, but that could be a sign that they're, slowly kind of going more inside. So we need to make sure that we're still talking to them. We want to look at our behaviors when we see ourselves getting stressed out. So probably the first important thing to modeling good behaviors to our children is to make sure that we are aware ourselves of our emotions and our feelings. So being aware, acknowledging that this is an anxiety-provoking time, acknowledging that we may not have all the answers, acknowledging that we are out of control right now. And as a parent, that can be really scary to feel that you don't have the control over protecting your family. So what are some things that we can do as a parent to help our child? We need to learn stress management techniques ourselves, things that work. So Anthony led us in a salsa dance, which was fun. If you're not a good dancer like me, it could cause a little more anxiety, but it's a great way to kind of get out. So what we know about anxiety, right, is that it's a mind-body connection. So what you notice is it's hard to separate the two. When you're feeling anxious, the symptoms that you're going to feel or experience are physical symptoms, even though anxiety could be a psychological kind of response. There's also a physical response, right? So that's when you see you're feeling tension in your neck, maybe you're feeling your heart racing, maybe you're getting, a stomach ache. Kids can also show those same symptoms, right? So they'll complain of their belly aching or headaches, have difficulty sleeping. You'll see changes in their behaviors. So we want to, first of all, recognize that there's this anxiety going on. And then we want to try to implement some stress management techniques. And like I said, the first thing we would want to do is make sure ourselves that we're managing our stress. So doing some self-reflection, taking some time to kind of process your own feelings before you talk to your child about what's going on with coronavirus, to make sure that you're in control of your emotions. for children, there's a lot of really great resources for stress management and helping them kind of center themselves. We use a lot Go Noodle in my house. I use Go Noodle a lot. I think probably a lot of other people already know about that resource, but they have a lot of really great mindfulness skills for the children that takes them through, more visual, sensory things for them to kind of become more centered. So it leads them through those discussions, and it's a great way to kind of, before you start a discussion, to kind of calm down. So other ways that we can model stress tolerance is by using our words, I think, when we're feeling ourselves becoming stressed, and to talk about these things. So, right, we don't want to make the coronavirus a big secret, because the kids are talking about it anyways. They're hearing the commercials, they're hearing the news, they know they're not going to school for a reason. So it's important to be able to be open and talk to our children about their fears and our fears too. If we're going to catastrophize things in front of the children, and they see us being, kind of dramatic and, oh my gosh, what's going to happen, then they're going to also pick up those behaviors, and you're going to notice that. So it's important, right, to kind of talk in a factual way that they're going to understand, and give them a lot of time to express their feelings and explain what's going on in their words. A good way of doing things is also to, if you can identify specific things that trigger your child even more to a stressful situation. For instance, sometimes at bedtime, kids will have more anxiety before they have to go to sleep. So having a good bedtime routine with them can help calm their anxiety and help them sleep well. So, probably not having a coronavirus talk right before bedtime is probably a good coping skill. But it's still an important talk to have. So when do you talk to your children about this? I think it's important to find a quiet time to be able to talk and have enough time to answer their questions. You may want to open things up with a video about, coronavirus. There's been a lot of things out there. Sesame Street did a presentation on CNN about the coronavirus and talking to your children about it. So that can be a great tool to kind of spark discussion and keep you hopefully a little bit calm too, by having that structure to your discussion. I think also helping the children, develop a support system, right? So that they know who they can go to when they're feeling this way. So maybe their usual people in their lives aren't there for them. Maybe they're not able to see their grandparents or their teacher or some of their classmates. Is finding someone to kind of replace in the meantime, whether it's using, FaceTime to stay in connection, or trying to make other fun activities that you can do. There's been a lot of stuff online on resources of what people can do to still stay in contact even though we're socially distant. It was a kind of a quick discussion to things. I want to talk to a little bit about the kids that we see then come into the clinic, because we talk about kind of, I guess, different types of stress and anxiety. And you're right, some of this is normal. It doesn't mean that just because you're feeling anxious doesn't always mean that you need, to be diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. The problem comes when you're not able to kind of adjust and get past this. It's when the anxiety starts to impact your ability to function, right? So kids are going to be anxious. We're going to be anxious. When you see your children are struggling to complete the schoolwork, they're not getting up in the morning, they're having more and more difficulty getting things accomplished, I think that's the time when you may want to also reach out and make sure that, things are on the right track, that you're not going to need additional supports from, say, a professional. I'm not sure if people were looking for specific resources. I know we've been certainly as a clinic, as things have been changing so rapidly, we're also trying to share resources amongst ourselves and our therapists so we can continue to provide telehealth.
Thank you, Nichole. Someone
open up for questions now.
Yes. Nichole, can you answer this question? Someone asks, how can I help my child deal with anxiety when I suffer from it myself?
Yeah, That's definitely a good question. And like we were saying about, modeling for your children, it's going to be important first for you to be able to get some control over your anxiety. So the fact that you're able to recognize that is, I think, a big step, because some people aren't even aware of what they're feeling. So the fact that you're acknowledging that you're feeling anxious, maybe more anxious than usual, things that you want to really try to do is to do some grounding exercises before you start to talk to your child, so you feel more in control of your emotions. When we feel more in control of the situation, I think that definitely reduces our anxiety. So certainly, being able to do some breathing techniques. I know we didn't do any of those today, but to be able to center yourself to what's going on around you, so to be able to just clear your thoughts and take a few deep breaths is important, and to really be aware of your signs of increasing anxiety. And when you're recognizing those signs, to be able to pull back a little bit. So as you're having a discussion, no matter what it is, it's an anxiety-provoking discussion or it's through discipline, but something that's causing you can feel that anxiety increasing. You're feeling the tightness, you're feeling uncomfortable. You want to be aware of that so you can quickly bring yourself back down to baseline by just taking sometimes a couple deep breaths, just kind of clearing your head. And I think it's okay to also talk to your child about that you do struggle sometimes as parents. We're not perfect, and we do react out of anxiety. So having that discussion with your child in their kind of words as well can be helpful. So I think having an honest discussion with child that, listen, I feel this way. Do you ever feel this way? Do you understand what that feeling is? And then trying to work through it together, I think, is okay. But certainly I think the most important thing is really trying to be self-aware of your own emotions and how you're reacting to those, so that you don't react in an unhealthy way that your child is going to pick up on and start to react in that way too. It takes a lot of practice. I think something as simple as those go noodle exercises, doing them together with your child, is a great way to help calm yourself by modeling those good behaviors. And it's very helpful to do. We use even the go noodle before the kids sit down to do schoolwork. There's different stretches and exercises they can do. So you could play around with it to find what works best for you. And I would definitely encourage doing that together as a family.
Okay, I have another question for you here, Nichole. Someone asked, is it normal to feel anxious for a long time?
So I guess I'd kind of want to know what a long time is. I mean, things that we would look at, like I mentioned, is it is normal to feel anxiety. I think a lot of people feel that. And I think it's important to, when you're feeling it, acknowledge it, because then it will be easier to control. How long is too long? Again, it's when it starts to interfere with your ability to function. So when your anxiety gets so bad that you're not able to complete your daily tasks, so it interferes with your ability to finish cleaning your house, or finish getting dressed, or take a shower, or you're having difficulty sleeping, that's when I think you would want to seek out more professional help. Anxiety happening, if you're able to kind of manage it, your anxiety is going to be higher right now with all that's going on. Everybody's facing so much right now. And I can't say when that feeling should go away. It may not, but you should be having moments throughout your day when you are feeling calm and peaceful. If you're feeling anxious 24/7, you need to really do something to release that energy. Otherwise, what we notice with people with anxiety is anxiety feeds on itself, so it just continues to really get worse, and it almost becomes even more unmanageable because you get so kind of sucked into this cycle of anxiety that it gets worse. People start having, irritable bowel problems, and it becomes more out of control. So certainly recognizing it, addressing it, and trying to manage it. And if you feel that your skills that you usually use, the things that you usually do to calm down aren't working, usually that's a good time to ask for help, because there's no need to suffer through this. There's a lot of really great help for anxiety, whether you choose going through the medication route, whether you want to do a combination, whether you try to do therapy. There's a lot of really great therapy skills that you could do short term to really develop your management of anxiety. And it's something that could be done in really a few sessions. If you're consistent with it and you try those skills, it's something that can be manageable.
Thank you so much, Nichole. Cruz, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to, Nichole, to speak a little bit about what does the short therapy look like. A lot of time people don't come to therapy because they think, and we experience that when we do presentations, that people say, I don't want to go because they're going to label me, or that I have to stay in therapy forever. So I like the idea of short term, specifically for issues like anxiety. How does short term therapy look like, Nichole, if you can describe?
Yeah, so the way I usually, so for something to me like that, where you can identify a specific symptom that's going on, we may not know the specific causes of the symptom. We may not be able to remove those triggers that cause the anxiety. However, we can teach you skills to better manage it. We use a lot of like CBT therapy, right, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. So becoming aware of your thoughts and your reactions and trying to break that cycle, because so often we continue doing the same things, getting the same results, and we get stuck in that cycle. So being able to kind of break that cycle is important. So by having an outside person, such as a therapist, be able to help you process those things, it can move along a lot quicker. So I think that for people that we see that come to us and they're experiencing high levels of anxiety, it's an uncomfortable feeling. Sometimes it gets to the point where physically they're not able to do things the way they used to because their headaches or their stomach problems become so severe that they can't even leave the house. So, I mean, you want to catch things before they get to that extreme. So as far as short-term therapy, what I would say is it would be a commitment from the individual. You want to be motivated to make these changes. And then what it would look like is coming regularly every week to meet with your therapist, or we're doing, the teletherapy right now. So doing it this way even, so that you are talking about what you're experiencing, so we can identify what those triggers are, so we can identify what the symptoms look like when you're experiencing anxiety, and then identify what skills will help reduce the anxiety so you can get back to a normal state. So it takes a little bit of time because it depends on the insight of the individual that comes to us, how aware they already are of their body and of their emotions, how open they are to discussing these things, all makes a difference. And then I think the other piece of that is being able to use the skills that we will teach in therapy and we'll practice with you, is being able to then take them out of therapy and practice them on your own. Sometimes that's the harder piece. I feel like in therapy, we're there with you, we coach you through, it's a controlled setting. But what happens when you're home and your kids are screaming and you got to get out of the house, all these things going on, how are you going to handle it? So the best way to be able to handle that in times of distress is by practicing it a lot. So you're going to practice it in therapy. Your therapist is going to give you little homework assignments to, again, work outside of the session. So it's not just half an hour, 45 minutes once a week. This is something you also bring then into your home, and you start to become more aware of your surroundings. And I usually, I wouldn't have a specific time frame. I like to look at it as a 12-week period for everybody. We do a 12-week treatment plan. So, we would meet with the person at the first session and kind of explore what they're looking for in treatment, and then come up with a plan of achieving that. And then after 12 weeks, we're going to reassess things and see, okay, how far have we gotten towards these goals? Have we accomplished them? If we didn't, what other steps can we take to get there? And then, after 12 weeks, if the person felt like, wow, I've really developed a lot of great skills, I feel more comfortable, I feel ready to tackle stuff, they may decide to, discontinue treatment and try the things and the skills on their own that we've taught them. And then at some point in the future, if things change or life gets extremely stressful again, they may come back in and we may kind of like kind of recharge them with those skills. So that's kind of the role of the therapist. I know there's a stigma involved. I feel like maybe, having the coronavirus has been interesting, I think, for a couple reasons. It's also brought a lot of attention, right, to mental health. And I feel like even before this happened, there was a lot more attention to mental health. So I'm hopeful that the stigma is also going to start to go down. The more you hear, I hear people on the radio, talking about it. You hear people that you see on TV talking about mental health. So I'm hoping that the more and more you hear these celebrities that we watch on TV, and they're not afraid to say, hey, yeah, I go to a therapist, hopefully that will remove the stigma. And, kind of looking at it as our role here is not to judge you, Our role is to really help you achieve those goals. It's like we're like a coach. We're helping you achieve those goals. So that's the message we try to get out, and that's how I would suggest that therapy would go. And again, the person's level of commitment and of course the underlying issues can determine how long treatment really needs to go on.